be prepared for not great news on this one, I'm afraid. This is not great. We've got a lot of information to go through on Football Manager 26. Football Manager just released a tweet at 5 o'clock as I'm recording this video, and there's 2 articles from Radio Times and Eurogame, and we're going to run through them in quite a bit of detail because they tell us exactly the problems we're going to have with FM26 as of the build, which is not, it should be quoted because I got to get this right, it's not the actual build, it's a development build which was probably available for the alpha testing for the Tokyo Game Show journalists a couple of weeks back in those articles where they were saying they were playing it at the end of September. These articles are saying that they played it at the start of October. Let's get into what I uncovered on those videos. I've had to re-record this start about 4 times because there's more information coming out. There's going to be a meltdown on Reddit. There's going to be a meltdown on the forums. And there's going to be a meltdown on Twitter over very little information. So let's read it. Let's bear with it. It's not great. There's positives. There's green shoots. But Eurogamer especially highlights all the problems we're going to have. Let's get into it. Let's see if they fix it. We know there's 80 bugs. Have they fixed those 80 bugs? We got 2 weeks to find out. Let's get into it. By the way, if you want to talk about any of this, you know what to do. Drop a comment, like, subscribe if you want, if you like the video, and let's chat about it in the comments. Let's go. Understandably, over the last 24 hours, there's been an increased speculation about advanced access beta. They're calling it beta again now. But we're finalising the details and we'll have a concrete date to share with you next week. We're nearly there. There's been a lot of meltdown. There's been a lot of backlash because people just don't know when it's happening. And it's not. This video isn't going to get any easier. Oh, God. Right, let's get into it. We've got articles from Eurogamer and Radio Times, and they are telling you, they may be saying they're ready. As of the start of October, there's a lot of bugs, and it's going to be this is going to be possibly the most divisive game we're ever going to play. Let's get into it, shall we? Brace yourselves. Football Manager fans, I've played a day's worth of Football Manager 26, so that's probably like 10 hours, and it's going to take a lot of getting used to. Okay, so that's an old one, that's fine. Chris taps for you, okay. Took me a long time to get through all the inductions. We know there is a football induction and there's going to be a Football Manager 26 induction. They've said that in the Tokyo Game articles. This part is pretty familiar with any long-running fans. Every save takes a long time. If you're not spending hours deciding every little thing, a lot of people say you're just being lazy. But you got hours of just trying to get through all the meetings, tactical overview, tactical training, scouting department, setting up your save, basically, isn't it? But in FM26, the biggest gamble on a new engine and new user interface has taken this to a whole new level. There's a lot to learn here. More accurately, relearn. If you've played the series before, a lot of it is the same. Through within a new layout, like returning to your house to find all your furniture has been moved around. Maybe the odd bits reupholstered for good measure, and some of it's properly at first confoundingly, but also potentially brilliantly new, which is interesting. So the first bit gets onto manager screen. So let's see here. There's a greatly improved character creator for your manager, but beyond significantly less dodgy visuals, which we did sort of see on that teaser of a leaked main menu, there's also something noticeably more impactful in a more RPG style setup to your manager's attributes. Interesting, because we've got something like this in console, which is manager principles. For one, these are now described verbally, so rather than having a hard number, your attacking is average, good, very good, or outstanding. That's something he doesn't love. Personally, if an attribute has a number behind the scenes, we may as well be able to see it. I disagree. I think manager attributes are gone, basically. Staff attributes as well. Do you need to know how good someone is coaching if it says very good? It should be a little bit more up to, potential guessing. Having a cold hard number sometimes doesn't work for me. Given we can see all the other ones, well, it'll only be a Google away to find out what a very good one is in numerical terms anyway, which, to be honest with you, is probably going to be like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. It's not going to be much different, I don't think. The same goes for long hidden attributes he's complaining about here, about player personality descriptor. In his opinion, can't you have visible numerical rating? For professional and ambition, no, because that determines how good your player's going to develop. You got guesswork there. It's a quite a wide range. Okay, more interesting though is how you can now pick 3 coaching styles from 9, which is similar to principles in console: attacking, defensive, developer, energetic, entertainer, pragmatist, specialist, systems builder, and tactician. So there's 9 of those you got to choose 3. Press 3 mental styles from a choice of 6. Driven, disciplined, resilient, convincing, inspirational, and accomplished. These then determine your ratings for your individual coaching attributes, such as attacking coaching, set-piece coaching, man management, according to your choice. Essentially, it's like a background system for classic RPGs. You pick fixed elements for your character that impact the actual numbers to govern your success in game. This is really, really potentially good. I like the fact that you can have those. I mean, there was those choose your type of management style where you had taskmaster, you had hard worker, you had, fitness freak and all those type of things. And that's obviously they've looked at that and gone, that doesn't quite work, let's develop it more. And then you've got console where the principles were potentially brilliant because they'd impact your team's dynamics. And I feel like that's what they're trying to do here, which is really, really good to be that level. Because console feels like it's scraping the top. PC's definitely getting in there. That's really good. That is really good. So it gives you some inbuilt tendencies, such as playing attacking football or entertaining football, which seem to largely impact in-game dialogue events, like how you press, for example, or how the press describe you. Sorry. After this came a usual wave of mini tutorials delivered through the portal. More on that shortly. Okay, any new screenshots here? It's in the usual way of you having to work through like a slide-like page that represent key points of a meeting. This also, however, was where I found my first problem in the new UI. The brief description now in FM26 now features a window-like system where clicking on certain tiles within your not inbox will now open a smaller window within the game UI that temporarily overlays what you see. So we see the pop-ups, for example. Which he says here, basically is a pop-up. It essentially means staying on the original page, expanding something you might see that in like detail to look at and then go back. Okay. But here's a snag. There's no back button within the windows. I mean, this is games... How long ago did he play this? Does it say? Like, this is right close to the end of the game being launched, and he's picking up this. Alright. No back button within Windows. That's not great. Example of where this causes a problem. I was in Team Dynamics induction pop-up, which features a series of pages of slightly verbose information of how the system works. Where I get to one showing me the tiles within this window on a few of my key leaders in the squad. Let's say I want to click on one of those to see in detail. I wanted to see a bit more information on Bruno Fernandes's leadership potential to decide who'd be my captain. What happens next? Well, within that window, you're taken to Bruno's page. There's no way of getting back to where you were in the induction. So you now have to close the whole window and then find the not email in your not inbox that prompted the induction and work your way back. That's going to cause problems. That's going to cause problems. So basically, it's saying when you get in there, there's no way of getting back to where you were, which it's a bug. Is that going to be a long-term bug? Well, I don't know. But that shouldn't be that complicated. Whether or not it's because it's in a tutorial and then you exit the tutorial and you can't get back in, either way, it's like you should probably press continue or R2 and it should go, oh, actually, you need to go back to that stage or unfinished the tutorial. That seems a bit... As for the portal, it's basically your inbox, and that's good. The inbox worked fine. And while, yes, technically Football Manager in the real world isn't simply done by a laptop and Gmail account, or a series of to-do lists briefed on the left and a big pane on the right to view that task, it's ultimately a very efficient system for a game like FM where you are ultimately working through a series of in-tray messages and the tasks while exploring the wider UI when you want to look into something in depth. Okay, so the main tweak here is the addition of those tiles of cards. I never know which it is in Sports Interactive's official terminology. Bear in mind you've interviewed Miles and he's shown you this back in July within the detailed email window. Rather than the block of text in actual email format, you now get a series of boxes with bits of information within them. I'd say it's a mild improvement, but very early days. Over time, it could prove a huge time saver, potentially more of a pain than just having the text with a few handy hyperlinks in it. The big change, though, even bigger than the UI, is on the pitch. Or rather, on the pitch and under the hood, and in the change room, and on the whiteboard. It's the tactics. So, tactics now, okay. No, they're normal screenshots we've seen. This stuff, after a few hours, is fantastic. Most obvious notable change is the visual improvement with the matches themselves. The games now look dramatically nicer and more realistic in motion than they've ever done before. There's a swathe of new animations and more seamless blending between them, and it immediately shows. Yes, there are plenty of familiar ones. You'll recognise FM-like movements anywhere, but fundamentally these matches simply look much more real, like real football. It's lovely to have 2D visuals running in between highlights too, so you can so he's saying it's good for the 2D match viewer, and obviously we know you can play it in 2D. That stuff's all lovely, but as any football cliche merchant knows, the hard work's done in the dressing room and the training ground. Right. And this tactical stuff is equally at first glance excellent. Training largely seems to operate the same, though there was only so much time I had to poke around every corner of this thing. Tactics had the most dramatic reworking since the introduction of roles and duties over a decade ago, and now there's a split between in and out of possession. You've got 2 tactic screens with distinct formations. Plus a kind of unified view of the 2 and a tactics visualization system. In practice, it's a bit of a revelation, and we sort of knew that anyway. That's not new. Jack Joyce is saying we've been looking to do it. Senior product owner of Sports Interactive and looks at the tactics and match engines. Told me during an interview at the studio, the team has been working on it for more than 4 years. Fundamentally, it just comes from the idea that we could recreate tactical systems that we're seeing in real life with tools we had at our disposal. So these are tactics. Nothing's new there. So give an example of 4-3-3. So that's talking about in and out of possession, but you can't really get them to defend as a 4-4-2 with Odegaard defending alongside the striker. He's talking about your Arsenal. The team considered adding more roles, which approximated that effect, but ultimately settled on splitting the 2 systems, and they've increasingly been done in the real world by those with a modern understanding of the game. In FM26, there are indeed new roles, 2 on top of that. There are indeed new roles on top of that, but they're also split up across in and out of possession setups. An example, out of possession, a player playing wide on the right can be asked to fall in line, track opposition attackers even deeper. Sit high or wide and wait for the outboard to launch a counter-attack, like we've been seeing the outlets. Likewise, if you're a CAM, or central attacking midfielder, in my case, my dear Bruno Fernandes, playing as a 10 when in possession, then moving up to sit beside the centre forward to defend as a 2, as a front 2 when you lose a ball. There's a huge amount of fluidity available here. I saw some ludicrous formations around the room at preview. Okay, so more people have been playing this. You can technically ask your centre-back to run up to the centre-forward when in possession and back to centre-back again when you lose it. Oh my God. Right, okay. But just because he can't doesn't mean you should. You'll get a little warning sign from your assistants telling you they'll struggle to move between such distance positions if you really push your luck. So you could have literally murder ball. You could literally go anywhere. Okay, though you can of course always choose to ignore and press on your asymmetrical left back to right back winger transition if you really insist. This could be really fun for doing mad tactics. Surely you gotta restrict people in some way, but the team decided yes, they can do crazy stuff. Restricting the system was something I was really adamant they shouldn't do, because I feel FM has always been giving you that freedom to do what you want. So literally, you should be able to create any tactic to do anything you really want. The warning system is just a compromise. And that doesn't look to be any different tactics there. The visualizer is a crucial factor in this information, something I hadn't even seen at first until Joyce mentioned it during the interview. Obviously, we've seen this coming through on the adverts and the trailer footage. With tactics screen, you can now quickly view how your team will look. In visualization, that resembles something close to a heat map or pass network. Each player is likely positioned during the phases, so when you're defending deep, you can click through the third of the pitch closest to your keeper and see that the right winger you told to stay high lurking should potentially be there, but also expose your right back and also potentially pin your opponent back a little. This evolves a lot through all 3 phases of the pitch, like vertical verds as well. You can see how you'll look when you have the ball left of the opposition's penalty area as well, which we sort of know. Okay. Ultimately, however, the proof is all in playing the matches. Quickly, my 4-2-3-1 to 4-4-2 began to struggle. I wasn't sure if it was moving between 2 shapes or something more fundamental to how we played. I had a warning for Bruno that moving his central attacking midfielder role to striker role, which threw me until I had confirmed it was actually a bug. Okay, so soon I switched to 3-4-2-1, keeping it both the same in and out of possession. I had more success. That also threw up an interesting question I'm keen to test in full game. How do players with natural hybrid roles such as wing-backs work here? The essence of a wing-back is that they drop deep when out of possession and push high when you have the ball. So this new system should mean I can leave them at wing-back in both phases. Okay, so he's talking about going from a front 5 to a back 5. All this excitement, however, should be a little bit tempered. One other persistent theme beyond the wide-eyed wonder at all the new tactical toys here was one very regular encounter of bugs and minor hiccups. A lot of this stuff is the type of thing that gets squashed with a quality pass, and I roughly played a 2-week build here back at the start of October. So that's in the last 2 weeks, meaning that there was still a decent bit of time tinkering before release. The sheer volume of their issues was noticeable, and in my experience, more than a team will typically eliminate from a game of 1 to 2 months launch. We knew there was about 80, didn't we, from the Tokyo Game article. Okay. Some examples, like text overlaps in the UI in multiple places. Not great. The text for the tactics visualizer didn't match the phases of player selected. Player roles sometimes didn't change in different pages out to the pop-up when I was trying to set them in and out of possession, plus the warning bug and the lack of bug button issues mentioned above, and many more. Likewise, beyond bugs, and perhaps more significantly to the true success of FM26, some things just don't quite work as well as they used to. Oh dear. Okay. Must reply not emails aren't highlighted in red in the queue anymore, making it harder to skip them. There's no eye to hover over information quickly, something I realise now that I do all the time in game. Alright, so these are little user interface bugs, really irritating bugs. Even more, substituting players and organising these selections for match day now feels fiddly. Okay. With only small parts of a player's row in a list being selectable as something you can click and drag. Oh, people are going to kick off, aren't they? Oh god, this ain't great. On the player's dedicated attribute page, there's no option to highlight the key attributes for a role, and when you select a position, they can play from the miniature pitch visual, noting to indicate what's been highlighted, what roles are available within that position, and what the rating is for each. A key tool that you again use. There's no option to highlight the key attributes. So, that's not great, because how on earth are you going to teach people what the key attributes are for roles if they don't understand roles? All these things I found myself butting up against just within a few hours of play. Oh, no. How much is actually resolvable in a way I'm yet to discover? Bugs may be squashed, UI snags may have workarounds, new ways to be navigated, discovered, used, new muscle memory to be built. Essentially part of my time within the demo felt like walking around that home full of rearranged furniture and accidentally sitting on a coffee table instead of an office chair. Just because it was in a place I always used to have it. Over time, the new layout will become more natural, but just how natural and how comfortable and practical the new layout is will take more time to figure out. In the meantime, get planning those 2-phase tactics. This feels like a game, if nothing else, that will reward you for those late nights at the training ground. And from Football Manager, I'd expect nothing less. Eurogame has just come out, and now Radio Times is also going to go out. Let's get into it. First Eurogamer, and then we'll go into the Radio Times. Radio Times. Football Manager 26 shows a lot of concern, but also raises promise. Football Manager 26 raises a lot of promise, but raises concerns too. We just read the Gamer article. This ain't going to be great. Oh, it's Alex. Alex actually has tweeted and commented a lot of one of my videos. So, the fact he's got it. This went out at 4 o'clock, so there was an embargo then at 4 o'clock. Okay. Following a cancellation last year, let's kick on with it. Right, what's good? The game looks fantastic. I must say the new visuals shown in the first teasers didn't look like much of an upgrade, but seeing them in person is a different story. Okay. While the visuals are now leagues ahead of FM24, they certainly do fall into an emerging trend of wondering, was this worth cancelling FM25 for? Certainly in the long run, yes, but at the moment it's hard to say if those trees have borne fruit yet. Women's football is also in the game, long-awaited addition, and although the number of leagues is fairly small to start with, it's an important feature, and one that's only going to grow over time. That being said, I will be waiting patiently for someone to mod in the English third tier so that I can manage my beloved rugby borough. Okay, so we're going to talk about tactics. So what's he saying about tactics here? After years of asking for it, the tactics are now split between in and out of possession, then a few different formations. Along with this, there's a huge change to player roles. Channel midfielder instead of the Barrows and Mizzalas, okay, which does make it a bit clunky to differentiate between them all. There is a welcome change. This is a welcome change. It gives you more flexibility of how you set your team up. Though roughly 5 hours is nowhere near enough time to fully explore what the system offers. My initial experiences across Middlesbrough and Durham City were positive. Oh, he's talking about successes. Maybe there weren't that many successes for Eurogamer. In some aspects, certainly some could be used to tweak. While my strikers couldn't hit the broadside of a barn door, my defenders were extremely clinical. In one particular 6-1 victory, all 6 goals were scored by defenders, including a hat-trick from fullback. Interesting. Thankfully, all of these elements I've discussed so far would be the core of FM26, which really impressed me. Where my broader doubts regarding FM26 began to creep in is largely with its UI and user experience. It's a whole new different system, and like any new UI, it takes some getting used to. Hotkeys and shortcuts will be in the game at launch, but many of the shortcuts I was used to, or muscle memory to find certain menus, was now useless, which meant my first hour was a tad sluggish, my own fault, not the game's. Personally, he doesn't like the UI, but I never usually am. I install a custom skin every year anyway, as to many players, and that certainly isn't going to change with FM26. However, layout and design of UI is one thing, but actually using it is another. That's where my main gripe with FM26 so far lies. While at the SI offices we were told, whereas previous entries always built upon the existing... While at the SI offices we were told, whereas previous entries had always built upon an existing game, FM26 had been built from the ground up. The biggest consequence of this is that years, not decades, of quality of life improvements are not immediately present. While some of it is just little things that are nice to have, but not a necessity, plenty of them felt like quite large oversights. Oh, God. If you make a substitution in match, then click a player profile before confirming it. All your substitutions are reverted. So you make a sub in match and then click the player profile before confirming, and it removes all subs. If you try and make a sub by dragging players along the scrolling bar to the right of your tactics page, the bar no longer scrolls. You have to line up the names perfectly or otherwise move players multiple times just to get them on the pitch. That's not good. Sometimes a menu I opened simply didn't have a back button. Another one about the back button, forcing you to go all the way back to the dashboard and make your way back to where you are. Now, it's important to know the build I played on was a couple of weeks behind the internal build, and at that time there were a few weeks of development left, plenty of time to fix a couple of bugs and small issues. Eurogame was saying there's more than that. But with so many things to solve and just a month to go before launch, do forgive me if I feel a bit uneasy about what's to come. Still confident FM26 will be a success, but at its core, it's the same game we always loved, just a souped up game engine power in it. I'm also confident by the time we get to FM27 and 28, these creases will be ironed out and we'll have a definitive best ever version of FM to enjoy. But while not so bad as to cancel it, the growing pains of Unity Switch do appear to be hitting FM26 as we approach release. More than 2 decades on from the Switch to Football Manager, there's still plenty of people who have chosen to stick with their beloved Championship Manager, and I think we're about to see that again. As much good as FM26 brings to the table, I think there's certain aspects that it takes away, and certainly I can see it being a very divisive game. As I said earlier, there is only so much you can glean from an afternoon playing the game as deep as Football Manager. Once the beta, and more importantly the full game roll round, we'll get our answers as to whether this is ushering in FM's glorious new era or bumpy road to finish that line. Well, it's not as divisive, it's not as direct, and it's not as, informative as what the Eurogamer one was, but that's pretty bad. Okay. Well, there we have it. Not great news. I don't know what we were expecting, to be fair. We were hoping for really good news, and then all those bugs. Some things look great. Some things sound that they really well work. Other things, it's like, oh no. This could be one of those things of a generational poor game. Or, with a couple of fixes, it could be a great game. Until next time, thanks for watching. Why not subscribe? Choose one of these other videos. Until next time, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.